Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance? Of course you would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help. Like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use mobile app, available 24-hour roadside assistance and more, and Geico is an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
Gearheads know that some projects need so many parts, it feels like you need a whole storage unit just to store them. That's what eBay Motors' 122 million parts are for. Think of it as your virtual parts garage. They've always got the right fitment at the right prices. Use the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
What up, Tuesday listeners? It's Fantasy NBA Today. I'm trying to bring the energy. I'm bringing the energy, man. It's the end of the season here. You got to bring the energy. Otherwise, it's all just going to slip away. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. This is what happens when I record the show in the evening before. My brain is mush by the end of the day. My kid's got a fever. It's not COVID. Don't worry. We tested. Kid's got a fever. Everything's gotten completely thrown out of whack. Just trying to piecemeal the day together. I can effectively watch the head-to-head matchup, my head-to-head finals matchup on my phone while I'm chasing one of the two kids around. So I know what's going on with like a select 20 players in the NBA, and then everything else is catch-up at the end of the night. And then I'm trying to do a show. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here. You guys know the drill by now. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, when we're in playoff streamer mode, which is basically this 4-week stretch where I try to give a buffer. If your playoffs started 1 week earlier, 1 week later, whatever it might be. We talk streaming. For you Roto folks, my favorite. Sorry, head players. I do love the Roto guys. That's my jam, man. That's the fair way to play. We still recap every day's card, try to figure out what we can do going forward. There are Roto plays, there are head-to-head plays, and we kind of roll them together. I thought I would flip the order on today's podcast. By the way, I'm Dan Vespers. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Really do appreciate the fact. I know I've said this before. I will say it again. I've never had this happen before in the half-decade we've been doing this show, where the pod has actually picked up listenership the last couple weeks of the season. Never happened in the history of the podcast. It always tapers off at the end because, just from a sheer numbers standpoint, this is when leagues have ended. Some percentage of them, 15, 20, 25% of leagues, are over by now. So podcast listenership should drop off roughly that same amount, and it hasn't. It's gone up. I can't figure it out other than I love you guys. You're the best. Thank you for all the ratings and reviews. Thank you for the new listeners that are coming in right now. This is just, it's so cool. You know, like the last year, the season ended in mid-May. So April was effectively the last full month of the podcast. And it looks like we're probably going to just thump that last month. So this year, the last month would be March. Last year, the last month was April. I think we're probably going to beat it by like 25 to 30% growth, which is nuts considering we're in the midst of like two very short, weird turnaround years. I'm super excited about what next season's going to bring, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Follow me on Twitter at Dan Vespers. Love to talk to you guys over there if you haven't followed me there yet. I think many of you that are listening now over here are probably coming from the social media side because I've been doing way too damn much over there. It's worth it, though. It's worth it. We're finding new bodies. Introduce you guys to sports ethos. So what I normally do is I go through the night before, and then I walk my way into the streamer stuff. Today, I actually want to do the streamer first. And I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner, but so many times I've been going through the box scores as kind of a recap mode, and I get to a team like, you know, Chicago would be a good example of this. In yesterday's podcast, I talked at extraordinary length about how Chicago is a really important team to have right now because they went Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I think, this week. So a really good schedule team. But if I haven't talked about the streaming part yet, then when I'm talking about their scheduling advantage, I sort of over and over again tease the streamer segment of the show when if I had just done it already, I could refer to it. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier. From now on, this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to do it this way next year also. Streaming. We do 2-a-days. Yesterday we talked Monday and Tuesday, as I mentioned on yesterday's show. Monday, the only reason to do a stream would be if you had a fringy player on one of the 3 teams that goes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Scratch that first part. Edits, what are edits? Dan just talks right through. Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. There are 3 teams, Minnesota, New Orleans, and Phoenix, that have that very crummy schedule. And the reason that's the worst schedule of the week is because both Wednesday and Sunday are overload days. So not only do they only have 3 games, which is tied for the lowest, there aren't any 2-game weeks this time around, but they also expend 2 of their games on days where you probably could just drop someone else into your lineup. So yeah, maybe Jose Alvarado is your, 10th best player, and by dropping him, you'd have to move your 11th best player into his spot in your lineup, but you're not actually sacrificing a game by dropping him on those overload days. You're sacrificing like a 10th of a game on each of them. So if you were able to pick up, say, yesterday, someone on Chicago that has a 4-game week, none of them on overload days, you go from basically having like what we'd call a 1.2 game week to a 4-game week. You're getting 2.8 games in that instance. And that's only assuming the player you got on Chicago is worse than the player you gave up. Monday's gone, can't think about it. I think there's a song, Yesterday is Gone, It's Just Remember When. Yesterday will never come again. Tomorrow never comes. Tomorrow's far away. So let's talk streaming today. Tuesday, I believe, today, is, like 2 weeks ago, the most important day of your entire week. And I mentioned it on yesterday's show, but I'll repeat it because I know not everybody listens to every single episode. The reason that Tuesday is super important is that a lot of the teams that go Wednesday, Friday, Sunday this week also had a game yesterday. So those players, those teams, were actually fine to start the week. They had 4 games. You could probably abandon ship on 2 of them, Wednesday and Sunday. But you didn't want to make a move before they played on the first day of the week. An example of such a team, there's plenty, Boston, Houston, Indiana, the list goes on and on. You guys don't need me to give you all the names. Basically, every team that is late in the alphabet has this schedule. Almost all of them. It's dumb. The reason I bring this up is because now those teams are basically the same as New Orleans, Minnesota, Phoenix. The teams that only go Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. And you can treat them as such starting today. You couldn't do it yesterday. You wouldn't have been able to make the move to gain 2.8 games. You would have gained 1.8 games because Chicago and the team we're talking about, Sacramento would be an example of it as well, both played yesterday. But now, again, comparing these 2 teams in particular, Sacramento, 3 games, 2 of them on overload days. Chicago, 3 games, none of them on overload days. So today, and again, yesterday was critical if you could move off of someone with that terrible schedule to get someone on the Bulls, where you could gain 2.8 roughly, or as many as 3 games, or more if the player you're switching to is actually better than the player you were giving up. But we're just going to average it out and call it about 3. We'll just assume that for this argument, let's assume the streamer level guys are equal in their value to your team. I realize that that's not going to be the case. Anybody you move is going to be a tiny bit better or a tiny bit less, but we have to take all of this kind of in a vacuum for our discussion. So let's not even give them a name and just say player A is a top 125, 135 value, somewhere in that neck of the woods. Player B, also top 125, 135 value. Player A is on Sacramento. Player B is on Chicago. There are other teams also, by the way, that this would fit in with. Sacramento now, the rest of the week, has the bad schedule we were talking about yesterday, except they had a game already. So yes, over the course of the entire 7 days, their schedule was markedly better because they had a game on Monday. But now, the last 6 days of this week, it's the same. Like I said, you just kind of have to forget about yesterday. It doesn't matter anymore that their schedule for the full week was better. We only care about today through Sunday, 6 days. Friends, life can be a bit exhausting sometimes. You got work, 30, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. You've got responsibilities. Got to get your car fixed. Got to take care of the dog. You got kids. Heck, maybe even sometimes you might take a moment for your own hobby. Maybe you play a little golf. Maybe you like going to the gym. Maybe you play tennis. I don't know. Maybe you just play video games and watch TV. But the energy to do all of those, all of that ridiculous laundry list can be a bit much sometimes. That's why I take M-Drive Start. M-Drive Start is a premium protein powder packed with 7 clinically tested ingredients that support energy, strength, and drive. And 6 premium protein sources for optimal recovery and digestion. That last one, very important for some. Every year it becomes more obvious that we're getting older. I'm very rickety when I go to bed at night and when I wake up in the morning. But that doesn't necessarily mean we need to slow down. Prioritize the need to take care of your health. So get M-Drive Start at mdriveformen.com and use the coupon code HOOPBALL, yes, our old name, HOOPBALL for 10% off your first order of M-Drive. You get free shipping and a 60-day money-back guarantee. Again, get M-Drive Start at mdriveformen.com with coupon code HOOPBALL for 10% off your first order, free shipping, and a 60-day money-back guarantee.
Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance? Of course you would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help. Like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use mobile app, available 24-hour roadside assistance and more, and Geico is an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
Yes, you can't make a move to a team and gain 3 games. But there are a ton of teams where you can make moves to gain 2. And you guys know, that's what we talk about on this podcast. If you can make a move to gain 2 games played in your week, then those little differences between, if you drop a top 110 guy or a top 100 guy for a top 115 guy, those dudes are only separated by probably about a 10% value on any given game. So gaining 2 games, even if your player is just a tiny bit worse, gains you, if you want to do the math on it, about 1.8 games worth of streamer-level production. And if you can do that, if you have 3, 4, 5 roster moves in a given week, if you can do that with all of them, you're talking about a colossal advantage over your opponent. The math of it doesn't always work out, but if you assume that your team and your opponent's team probably have about 6 or 7 really good players, and that those players are somewhat even in their production, and then both of your teams probably have another 3, 4 players that are fine, and those are relatively even in their production, and then the bottom 3 or 4 guys on your 2 teams are also relatively even in production. If everything was equal, the 2 teams meeting in the finals would have a very close week. But if you can somehow use your roster moves, if you can use all 4 of your moves to gain whatever we want to call it, 7.2 streamer games worth of production, what categories are we talking about here? Go to the board, and now we can take real players. If you look at somebody ranked near 125 on the year, that player, by the way, is Kevin Love this season. On a per-game basis, Kevin Love is number 125. He's averaging 13.5 points, 7.3 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 2.5 three-pointers, half a steal, almost no blocks, pretty good free throw, bad field goal, relatively low turnovers. If you have 7 Kevin Loves, 7 Kevin, added to your team at the end of the week, how much of a difference do you think that makes? Go back and look at all of your weekly matchups if you don't believe me. But 7 times 13 or 14 is a pretty good number. You're talking about between 90 and 100 extra points for your team that week. You're talking about 17 and a half three-pointers. You're talking about almost 50 rebounds, 15 to 20 assists. Okay, fine, that's not as big of a deal. But again, we're talking about specific categories. Only 3 steals, right, not that big of a deal. Talk about someone else ranked near 125. Let's say you're streaming a different level player. I'm not going to say Julius Randle, even though he's number 122 this year. Monte Morris. Let's say you wanted something more in the guard spot. He's at 4.4 assists. So 7 of those, you're talking about 30-plus assists. 0.7 steals, you're talking about 5 total steals over the course of the week. Still about 90 points. So not all top 125s are created equal, obviously. But depending on what type of player you're streaming this week, whether you're looking at Chicago and maybe it's Ayo Dosunmu, or maybe it's Alex Caruso, or any of the other teams we mentioned on yesterday's pod that I will list off here now momentarily, if you're eyeballing guards, roll up 7 extra games of guard production. 7.2, sorry. We're saying you're losing 10% by dropping someone for someone slightly worse. If you want to make it 20%, I don't care. That's fine. You're still getting 6.4 streamer games worth. And your opponent probably isn't getting 2 games with every move they make. They're probably getting closer to 1. So even if they're somehow on some of their moves actually getting a slightly better player, they're probably not overwhelming you. They might be getting, 3 extra games over the course of the week, and you're getting as many as 8? This is a 4-move week. If you have more than that, you can even do more with streaming stuff. And the beauty of this is that you don't even need someone playing on Sunday. So you can actually look at other 3-game teams this week. You don't need a team playing 4 times. Yeah, sure, there are teams that still go 4 times. What do we got? Cavs go 4 times, but their schedule is not the one I'm talking about. Clippers, Lakers, Pistons, Bucks, Sixers, and Wizards. No, Wizards don't have the right layout. Dallas and Washington still have 4 games, but their 4 games is actually less valuable than the teams that go 3, but do it on the right days. So let's go through the names real quick here. Brooklyn, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I'm going to talk about teams that generally avoid the overload days. All of them. Maybe not Sunday. Like Atlanta is sort of okay because they go Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. So they have 2 games you could definitely use. But Brooklyn's got 3. That's the point here. You want to move from a team where you're going to get 1 to a team where you're going to get 3. So it's Brooklyn, Chicago, Detroit, who, by the way, does go on Sunday, but that's the 4th game in their week. So it's sort of inconsequential because that one you're going to just count as a wash anyway. You're effectively turning a Wednesday game into a Thursday and a Friday by switching that one. Or you're turning a Friday game into a Thursday, Tuesday? I don't know. I lost track. Doesn't matter. Detroit, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Bucks, the Sixers, the Jazz are actually the last team. They go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. All of the teams that I just mentioned have 3 remaining games on non-overload days. Doesn't actually matter which one it is. Chicago, Brooklyn, they've got Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. If you're going to go through this sort of by name, Detroit goes Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Clippers, same. Lakers, same. Bucks, same. Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Philly, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And Utah, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So those teams, which by the way is a pretty good collection of teams. I'll repeat them again. Brooklyn, Chicago, Detroit, Clippers, Lakers. That's 5. Bucks, Sixers, Jazz. You have 8 teams to pick from on streamer level players. Just go through all those rosters. There's going to be somebody in there. Brooklyn's got Nick Claxton. He's been playing well. LaMarcus Aldridge has kind of been phased out right now, so that's a possible streamer. I doubt many of the other Nets have been dropped, but you could look around. Chicago's got, we already talked about Caruso and Ayo. That's what I get. I slapped my table and something went flying off the side of it. Getting animated over here. Detroit, they've got Killian Hayes. I doubt Marvin Bagley's still floating around, so it's probably mostly just Killian Hayes at this point. Clippers, lots of streamers on the Clippers. Isaiah Hartenstein, Terrence Mann. If Covington got dropped, I doubt it. Reggie Zubats might have gotten dropped. He was not very good. I mean, you're talking about a 2-game week last week, so a lot of these guys might actually be in the free agent pool. Lakers, LeBron is out. Probably. I think he said his ankle was terrible. I'd be floored if he played in Dallas and maybe not even in Utah either. And I know they got to win some games, but he said his ankle was awful. So you're talking about Monk, Melo, THT. Dwight Howard probably plays against Utah and the Pels and Jokic. Lakers got a bunch of options. Milwaukee, Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton are guys that are floating around on almost every waiver wire. Philly's got Matisse Thybulle, and Utah pretty much has nobody. Although, depending on who's hurt, and this is a problem because you can't really plan for the entire week. You don't want to pick up a backup center and then have either Whiteside or Gobert show up. Bojan Bogdanovic is probably on waiver wires. I think he's been ruled out already, so maybe you go Juancho Hernan-Gomez. All that to say that whatever you're dropping, whatever player you dump that had a game on Monday, you could probably go find someone that's within roughly 10 to 15% of production of them, or maybe even slightly better. I talked about Kevon Looney as an example yesterday, a guy finishing a 5 games in 7 night stretch. I'm going to switch off of Kevon Looney to somebody better. So not only am I going to get a 2-game bounce the rest of the week, where the Warriors have only 1 game on Saturday that would make my roster, I'm going to get a better player. So it's probably more like a 2.2 or a 2.4 game bounce. That's a big deal for my fantasy team. And you guys should do it too. And then don't make any moves on Wednesday. For God's sake, don't make any moves on Wednesday. You most likely have an overload. If you don't, this is something you should have looked ahead to, and you should have game planned for that, because it means you probably didn't need to make as many streamer moves yesterday and today. I think most teams have overload on Wednesday and Sunday, and so a lot of our goal this week is to get off of those and use it as a way to add moves to your weekly tally. I know, long discussion. Let's break down a Monday card. Let's go through it kind of quick. Denver beats Charlotte. Hey, Will Barton actually had another decent ball game. Maybe he's warming back up again. Maybe. Not sure I would trust it. You know who doesn't ever cool off? Nikola Jokic. Good God, man. Charlotte finally lost. They've been hot lately, and they'll be fine again. Good to see them kind of rounding back into shape here at the end of the year, but really nothing. Nothing at all from this basketball game. Cleveland beat Orlando 107-101. Cavs really need wins. They're going to play their guys, and they lost Evan Mobley to a turned ankle in this one. So guys just got really important. Kevin Love, I almost called him Kevon Love. Got Kevon Looney on the brain. Isaac Okoro, who if you picked him up for the 5-game week, probably just got really interesting now with Mobley out. But the regulars I'm not picking up Okoro, by the way, in a Roto league, but the regulars have a really nice rest of the week in front of them if Mobley now is missing time. And Karis LeVert, starting, but was terrible, he should be better too. Orlando's a pain in the butt. Wendell Carter Jr. came back, played 27 minutes. Mo Bamba, last time they played the Cavs, he got huge minutes. This time, not so much, and actually, he wasn't terrible. He was a +2 in a game they lost by 6. I don't know, man. Cole Anthony wasn't very good. Franz Wagner wasn't very good. No one was really good in this one for Orlando. If you've got him, use him. If you don't, I think that's a team I'd generally avoid. Playing against Indiana is a joy for teams right now. Atlanta puts up a $132. Good God. Trae Young, 16 assists. Herter, 22 points. Bogdan, 29. Capella, 22 and 15. Even Clint Capella woke up for this one. A lot of guys were out also. No Danilo Gallinari and no John Collins. Bogdan Bogdanovic was actually questionable. He ended up playing through it. But when 2 power forwards are down, a lot of guys are useful. DeAndre Hunter was out for this ball game. So that allowed Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot to slide into the starting 5 as well. Atlanta's down to the nubs these days, but they're hanging in there. Roto's standpoint, they're in Oklahoma City in a couple of days. It's hard to say who might be back for that ball game, but if any of their... I don't think I would go as far as Luwawu-Cabarrot, but if Herter, Bogdan, or Delon Wright are available, and those guys end up starting, or Bogdan, it doesn't matter, but if Herter and Wright are starting, and Gallo and Collins and Hunter are all still out on Wednesday, then I think DeLon Wright would be a really interesting stream at that point. More on the Roto side. Goga Batadze came back for Indiana. He's a start right now. Jalen Smith is also in, but as long as Isaiah Jackson is out, then those guys are fine. And Miles Turner is out for the year. Malcolm Brogdon also out, so that adds a lot of usage to the plate, which means big games for Tyrese Halliburton. Buddy Hield. Goga has plenty of opportunity in this situation. I don't even know who Kiefer Sykes is, but I know he played 34 minutes, and I know I'm not going to deal with him. Terry Taylor, no thanks. Justin Anderson, no thanks. That was one where you're looking at if Jalen Smith was still out and maybe if Goga was still out. For Indy, again, it's a similar thing where, like, if you're sitting on some of these guys, it's fine. They're much more built for Roto right now because their schedule is spread apart. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Goga, I would hang on to. Yeah, Tyrese and Buddy Hield are really the only guys you need to hang on to on the head-to-head side. Like, if you pivoted off of Batadze for somebody who you could use for 3 games versus 1, that's fine. Roto, I like him. He's good enough to use. I think Jalen Smith is good enough to use in Roto also. Chicago, another embarrassing loss. Well, what's going on with the Bulls right now? At least tomorrow was huge. Caruso, only 3 points. He fouled out in 30 minutes, but he got his 3 defensive stats, and he'll be fine because you'll get 4 games like this on non-critical days. He's not going to score 3 points in every one of them. He's going to probably average like 8 or 9, and you roll 4 games of that together, and suddenly you've got a bonus 36 points and 16, 17 rebounds, 8, 10, 12 assists. Probably get an extra 5 steals and 2 blocks this week. It's a big deal, actually. I know it looks kind of bad on a game-to-game basis, but extra games are everything. Alec Burks, start him. Mitch Robinson, start him. RJ Barrett, actually been pretty good lately. Still a little bit more points leaguey, but go ahead. Obi Toppin got 20 minutes. I do wonder if they're going to start to dial Julius Randle down a little bit. I don't think it's going to be enough for Toppin. And then Emmanuel Quickley had a rare off game. I think he'll be better in the next one. No changes here with New York, other than to note that Evan Fournier has cooled off, and you can go ahead and you can go stream somewhere else there. Kings got blitzed. No real surprise. They don't have many bodies left. Davion Mitchell is a start. Harrison Barnes is a start. Trey Lyles is a start, although he wasn't good in this one. Dante DiVincenzo and Justin Holiday are fighting each other, and it seems like every game they kind of rotate on and off, so you can probably leave them both alone. And then Miami finally beat somebody and just takes Sacramento with missing their 2 best players. That's maybe gets the Kings back on track. Boston rested everybody in Toronto. They almost beat them anyway. Marcus Smart had a big ball game, had some inefficiency issues, and then everybody else was kind of fine. If the big men, and we know Robert Williams, by the way, is basically out for the rest of the year, so you can drop the Time Lord, which is just the worst thing I've ever had to say on a podcast. I expect Al Horford back in the not-too-distant future. We know Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are going to be back probably as soon as the team gets back home. They're not going to screw around much here. But if Horford misses any other games, Daniel Tice is a guy you use in Roto. Grant Williams is a guy you can use in Roto. And I think Grant Williams you might even be able to use even after Horford comes back, although at that point, Daniel Tice is probably not usable anymore. And then on the head-to-head side, you just leave it all alone. Gary Trent Jr. was back for Toronto, which means Chris Boucher is finally back onto the waiver wire. That's just the way it goes when they got their guys. Boucher gets hurt. Thad Young had a really nice game off the bench, but I don't think you can trust that. Pascal Siakam willed his team to a win, playing 47 minutes in this overtime game. A little OT fun. That's it. Drop Chris Boucher. That's really the only thing on the head-to-head. Well, I don't know. There was some Roto stuff on the Boston side. Spurs hang on. Beat the Rockets. Shouldn't have been that close, but it was. DeJounte Murray, huge ball game. Spurs are fighting for a playoff spot now. Pirtle, Keldon Johnson, those guys are easy ones. Devin Vassell came back, played 34 minutes. Josh Richardson moved to the bench, but still had 15 points. I think I'd leave those 2 guys alone. For the Rockets, Kevin Porter Jr., when he's efficient, he can put up okay lines. We've seen enough. We know what the reality of this is. Jalen Greene was good. Alperen Sengun got the fill-in start and wasn't as great as I would have expected, but he was fine in 29 minutes. He'll be inside the top 100. He's a guy you just use the rest of the way in basically any format. Although he did bruise his leg, so you probably want to hang on in that. And if you're streaming him, you might actually want to move on now while you can get that because he's on overload days. You might want to move on now while you can still turn that one game into 3, and his one game might be 0. And the Warriors resting everybody in Memphis. This game was over real early. But hey, Brandon Clark was back. Couldn't throw a stone in the ocean, but he was back. And that's great. That's a good sign going forward. DeAnthony Melton had another big game. Tyus Jones slowed down, actually, a little bit in this one. Surprising little wrinkle. And then Oklahoma City has just abandoned ship on everybody. Their whole team is crumped. Even Trey Mann was a late scratch, which stinks because I think a lot of folks, myself included, had looked to him as a potential interesting little pickup. I don't know who the hell is going to play in the Thunder's next ball game, but Isaiah Roby remains safe. Alexei Pokuševski remains safe. And it does appear like Theo Maledon is safe because SGA has now been ruled out for the year. I'm assuming that, let's see, Dort, Giddey, those guys are out for they ruled out Darius Baisley for the season as well. And so then who knows? I mean, I think Trey Mann probably tries to get back. Sort of no reason to rest him. He's very, very young. Portland is also down to the nubs on everything. Drew Eubanks has been great. Brandon Williams had a better ball game. Kind of has no choice right now. I don't know. Mixed bag here with the Blazers. They might just be so terrible now that having a point guard isn't a great idea. I still think Chris Dunn is fine. If you wanted to use him in Rota, there's probably more interesting options floating around now with all the other guys that are out, like these Thunder potentially on the other side. I cannot believe that Drew Eubanks might be the biggest silly season winner. Although you guys remember when he got signed, I said put him on your watch list, and he looked kind of like a back-end center for a few days, and then all of a sudden he got 28, 29 minutes, and we said, wait a minute now. If this sticks, you got to go with it. And then they shut everybody down, and it was glorious at that point. I had Eubanks in a bunch of spots. I still do. A lot of roto teams with Drew Eubanks on it. I hope you guys do as well. What a mess these two teams are. Tankathon! This is the great American tank-off. Yikes. Certainly more interesting from a roto standpoint because you could pick someone up and then just not use them. I would say make sure you got Roby on a roto roster, Pokuševski on a roto roster, Eubanks. That's probably it as far as must-start roto guys. And then the fringy ones would be Maledon, if you're okay with some potential percentages issues. Wiggins, same general issues. Trey Mann, if he comes back, I think you could use. And on the Portland side, maybe Chris Dunn. But that's about as far as I'd go. And that's it. That's your recap. Roto, head-to-head, we got them all. Knocked it all in 30 minutes flat. All right, let's keep rumbling, man. Follow me on Twitter. We'll do some more discussion out there as streaming stuff pops up. And I'll be trying to retweet interesting health news into the timeline as well. Thank you guys again for continuing to listen to this show right until the very end. And remember, we will go all off-season long. 5 days a week just like this. I hope you'll join us for all of that. Drop a 5-star review if you haven't already. If you have, grab a loved one's phone. Do it on theirs. Big thanks, heart emoji, to all of you. Yep, I said that out loud. Real adult grown man said it. Said heart emoji. I regret it, but I'm not going to edit it out. Same thing as before. If I do something dumb, you guys get to hear it. I'm Dan Vespers. This is Fantasy NBA Today, a Sports Ethos presentation. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. Back at you tomorrow. Same format. Streaming guide first. Go figure. Later.
Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance? Of course you would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help. Like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use mobile app, available 24-hour roadside assistance and more, and Geico is an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
It used to be hard to find the exact auto parts you needed. And that meant spending a lot of time at swap meets. It's a different game now when you can order exactly what you need from eBay Motors. They have 122 million parts, so you can always find the right fitment. Spend less time searching and more time building with the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.